Who are the Ad Watchers? We are attorneys at the National Advertising Division of BBB National Programs, a team with over 50 years of experience investigating and resolving disputes over the accuracy of national advertising campaigns.
We don't just take ads at face value. We put them to the test. Why? Because advertising law can be simple, but it's the execution that's hard. Welcome to Season 4 of Ad Watchers, NAD's podcast that gives a view into how our organization reviews claims and applies advertising law. If you missed any of our previous episodes from Seasons 1 to 3, don't forget to check them out later. So I'm very excited to be reunited with my colleague Eric Unis, NAD senior attorney. Welcome back, Eric.
Thank you, Annie. It's great to be back on Season 4 of the Ad Watchers. We have a great season in store for everybody out there, and thank you for listening to our podcast as we discuss advertising law in the world of NAD and BBB national programs.
So what are we talking about today, Eric?
Well, one of the fun things about having now 3 seasons in the books and now a 4th season underway is we get to revisit and update you on some interesting topics from the past that we've discussed here on the Ad Watchers. And today we're going to talk about endorsements and testimonials and some consumer reviews. Since we last spoke to you on this subject, the FTC has updated its guides on endorsements and testimonials that happened last summer. The guides were due for an update. The last version of the guides had focused on bloggers. It came out during the era of the blogger. The revisions to the guides, and the guidance that went along with those revisions really take into account our current world of influencers and the prevalence of consumer reviews, and making sure that all of those practices are consistent with the law and not deceptive. Just a refresher on some of the basics on endorsements and testimonials. An endorsement must reflect the honest opinion of the endorser and can't be used to make a claim the marketer of the product couldn't make itself. We say that very often at NAD. And the other thing that pops up, a very important concept, is that material connections between the endorser and the advertiser must be disclosed. That is something that comes up over and over again when we're talking about influencers. Do consumers know whether or not there is a connection between the endorsement of the product and the influencer speaking, and whether they have been paid or given some kind of compensation for making positive statements about a product or service. So when the FTC had did its updates, one thing that caught a lot of people's attention was that they said those material connections must be unavoidable. They use this term unavoidable along with its definition of what would be clear and conspicuous when making these necessary disclosures. General or fine print disclosures may not be sufficient. Disclosures should be in the same location and format as the endorsement itself. And clear and conspicuous disclosure should account for the devices on which consumers are viewing the advertising. So they should be visible through all devices where a consumer may be viewing the advertising. The FTC took some focus on fake reviews, an important issue. Also noting that virtual influencers, tags in social media, these can be covered as endorsements. They also, through one example, talked about dog influencers. So influencers don't have to necessarily be human. They can be our animal friends as well. Now, Annie, do you follow any influencers, human or animal?
I tend to follow the animal influencers because I'm a dogless dog lover. And so I follow many dog accounts, and I will say that the material connection between the dog parent, it's obviously not the dog, but is not always disclosed. I mean, some of the influencers, certainly the more popular ones, I would say, do a pretty good job of disclosing the material connection with, the product that they're endorsing.
NAD has, over the years, has often looked at these kinds of endorsement issues. So, Annie, let's talk about some recent NAD cases where we've addressed these topics.
I want to mention, speaking of influencers, the FTC has issued a fair amount of warning letters, and most recently in November of 2023. So there were online health influencers who were promoting the safety of aspartame, an artificial sweetener, and sugar-containing products on Instagram and TikTok. The issue was that they didn't have the appropriate disclosures to alert consumers about their material connection to the American Beverage Association, who paid them to make those spots. So the videos didn't have disclosures. Like the hashtag ad in the Instagram reels was very small. So the FTC notably stressed that this was concerning because it related to health and safety claims, and that can be especially misleading to consumers. But it's, with respect to NAD cases, just hot off the presses, quite literally, last week, we issued a decision in a challenge brought by Haleon against Wonderbelly. And so in that case, we recommended modifications to influencer practices to add a hashtag ad, a hashtag Wonderbelly partner to the beginning of each influencer post, and also have the influencers include a verbal notice of their partnership with Wonderbelly in any of their video influencer materials. And so, Eric, do you want to talk about, there's been sort of a move against these elite influencers, if you will.
There's been some commentary recently out there in the marketplace about influencer fatigue and consumers being maybe more skeptical or not as receptive to these kind of luxury influencers who depict lifestyles that may not square with consumers' own experiences, and they may not have the same marketing impact as they did a few years ago. The market always changes, and marketers are always trying to reach consumers where they are and make the most impact. So there may be one thing to look out for is maybe a move to more organic kind of experiences being reflected in marketing and more typical of everyday Americans. Sound like a politician here. How everyday Americans are living their lives and making their decisions on which products to purchase. There's another sort of bedrock principle here, which is that advertisers cannot use testimonials to make claims about their products that they couldn't make themselves. So any claim that is adopted, let's say, by the advertiser from something that a consumer says, if a consumer says, I lost 30 pounds using this product, and an advertiser lists that content, the advertiser is responsible for making sure that the claim is substantiated. So, Annie, what are some other cases that we've seen at NAD that may touch on these subjects?
Sure. So one case, which was a monitoring case, concerned Cariuma sneakers, and so the issue there was, whether the material connection between Cariuma, which is a very trendy sneaker manufacturer, and the publisher was disclosed. So the posts were these sponsored posts by Travel and Leisure, and Us Weekly, and the Quality Edit, and they talk about the comfort and sustainability of Cariuma sneakers. So aside from the issue about the blurring of editorial content and advertising, in this case, the one of the issues was the reference to sponsored did not make clear who the sponsor was. Was it Cariuma? Was it another entity? It just wasn't clear. And so the FTC's recent guidance notes that there are some instances where it would be clearer to include who the sponsor is. So, sponsored by XYZ company, for example. So, we recommended that the material connection between the endorser and publisher be made clearer. So, Eric, do you want to talk about the Goose Creek case?
Sure. In that case, recently, NAD looked at advertising from Goose Creek, and these were advertisements for these candles. And some of the videos depicted consumers doing sort of a blinded smell test of the candles. This a banner in those videos which said includes paid promotion was not sufficient to disclose that the individuals in the video were actually actors and not real consumers. As we said, a disclosure should be made in at least the visible portion of the video, and if the endorsement is made in audio, the disclosure should be audible as well. In one other case, Renew by Science, an issue came up here also with sort of the sufficiency of the disclosure, which was made through audio. This was for a supplement product, and a woman is speaking in a YouTube video about her experiences with the product and using it for an anti-aging effect. At some point in the middle of the video, she says that, "Oh yes," and I something to the effect of, "And I believe in the product, so I work for the company now." That even though that disclosure that she's an employee of the company was made, it was not sufficient, being just snuck in there only through audio in the middle of the video. And then sort of the last case I want to mention is concerns something made in advertising in a retail context. This was advertising for Sephora on a retail site. And they were touting certain skincare products as with the line, "Have you met our best sellers? Skincare's most wanted." And what NAD said here is that if the products being featured here were there and being highlighted there because of a sponsorship and not because of an editorial reason or another reason why they would be put up there and highlighted, the advertiser would need to disclose that this was a paid promotion. So, Annie, do you want to talk a little bit about review sites? Another subject that comes up again.
Yes, absolutely. So, consumer review sites are ubiquitous. Consumers read articles and other reference materials, uh, before they make a purchase. And they're going to place more weight on a recommendation from a source that looks like an article than a recommendation in an ad. But what consumers may not know is that digital publishers, including bloggers, influencers, and endorsers, monetize content by using affiliate links. And also, many of these review sites are ads, for the top-rated product, but that's not disclosed. So what we see, is kind of like a blurring of the lines between editorial and advertising. Now, this isn't something new, right? We've reviewed this in cases, from the early 2010s, and certainly FTC has tackled this issue as well. They've provided a guidance document, the enforcement policy statement on deceptively formatted advertisements, which we certainly use when, as we try to harmonize our decisions with regulatory authority. But we've looked at this issue most recently in some monitoring cases, given as I mentioned before, the proliferation of these sponsored posts and review sites. So one example is the Smarter Reviews case, and then we've also seen it in some competitor challenges. Most recently, Zen Business and Smile Prep. The issue in these cases was that the reviews and rankings were ads. They were not independent, unbiased assessments of the products at issue. In Smarter Reviews, it looked at these top 5 eye serums, and it turns out to be an ad for the top rated product. Now, despite changes that the advertiser made, the issue was that it still looked like this in-depth, independent review and ranking of the products, when that just was not the case. It was, as I said, an ad for the top-rated product. So we recommended that Smarter Reviews discontinue its rankings and review format or modify its advertising to avoid conveying the message that the review and rankings were unbiased, genuine, and independent, and based on an unbiased and objective review site. In Zen Business and Smile Prep, there were similar issues. So in Zen Business, they were claiming to be the #1 rated service by Forbes, Investopedia, MarketWatch, NerdWallet, etc. But those ratings were based on recommendations by companies who had affiliate marketing relationships with Zen Business, and that was not clearly and conspicuously disclosed. And there was a similar issue with Smile Prep, and that was a tooth aligner review site. And both NAD and the NARB, because this was appealed to the National Advertising Review Board, recommended that Smile Prep clearly and conspicuously disclose that their rankings, reviews, and product information of the clear aligners of its affiliate partners are advertising. So bottom line, consumers are going to give more weight to what appears to be an independent review. So if it's an ad, it needs to be clearly and conspicuously disclosed as such. So why don't we wrap it up with some tips? Eric, why don't you start?
Sure. Be specific about the material connection between the affiliate marketer or influencer, etc., and the brand. If the entity sponsoring a post is not clear, put it in the disclosure. For example, simply stating sponsored may not be enough if consumers do not know who the sponsor is. It's more effective to say sponsored by XYZ.
Another tip is that, if it looks like a review and it talks like a review, but it's really an ad for the top rated product in the review, it's deceptive. And so you should make clear that this is actually advertising. Consumers want to make informed purchasing decisions, and they really place trust in a review or an article that appears to be independent. So it's very important to make clear to consumers what it is that they are looking at.
One last tip. I suggest looking at the examples in the FTC guidance and in NAD cases. Many of the scenarios in the guides are things we have seen at NAD, and they may cover your own situation. Marketers can get creative, and there are situations that are not covered specifically by the guidance. There are a lot of examples given which could give you a clearer picture of what to do in any situation. There is a tilt towards, when in doubt, disclosing. Make whatever disclosures you can, but the guidance give you a sense of what of what to expect. Thank you again for tuning in to this episode of the Ad Watchers. We hope you enjoyed it.
Join us next month for another episode of Ad Watchers. As always, you can head over to our website, bbbprograms.org, to learn more about what we do at the National Advertising Division or any of our other self-regulatory programs. That's all for this episode. See you next time. Thanks again for tuning into Ad Watchers. Be sure to check out our previous episodes at accountabilitystudio.org, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to get notified about our next episode. Until then, leave us a review and let us know what you would like to hear from us this season.